Hey there, Patrick CK here with my review of the DIYPC Silence-BK-Window mid-tower case. I chose this case for my next build for a couple of reasons, one of which was the price. At the time I was able to pick this up from Newegg for 50 bucks plus a $20 mail-in rebate, making it $30 at the end of the day. There are some pretty nice features that drew my attention to this particular case as well. My first impression of the case out of the box is that it is wider and heavier than the typical case I have used for a while, the Roswell Challenger. Of course, the Challenger case is really meant for simple, everyday, no thrills computer builds. At the same time, this case is definitely lighter and smaller than the Cooler Master HAF case you may have seen me take apart in my last video. Looking at it from the front, I really like the minimalist look with a solid front brushed aluminum door. The only problem with brushed aluminum is the fact that it picks up fingerprints and smudges them whenever you try to clean it. But the groove on the side of the door is perfectly placed to hopefully avoid this problem. The back of the front door is lined with the first example of the dense sound-absorbing material that's found throughout this case. The material is cleanly fitted into the door and has a distinct quality feel to it. On the front of the case, you'll find an easily removable dust filter that conceals the two 120mm white fans. Next to which you see the two 3-way fan speed control switches for the built-in fan controller. At the top are two 5¼ inch drive bay covers. On top we find one of the features that sold me on this case, the integrated SD card reader. Next to which are the dual USB 3.0, dual USB 2.0, audio ports, activity indicator, and the power switch. It is missing a reset button, and the card reader is using a USB 2.0 interface instead of a 3.0, which is a bit of a letdown. One thing I wasn't too keen about when I was first looking at this case was having the I/O on top, facing straight up for fear of the ports collecting dust, but DIYPC provided a really simple solution. A handful of rubber dust covers made for each port that can be inserted when you're not using those ports, which I thought was a really nice add that some manufacturers would not think about for the long-term ease of use of their cases. Along the top are two removable push-tab panels with the same dense sound dampening material on the bottom as the front door. Removing these panels allows for additional fans to be installed with mounts for two 240mm, three 120mm fans, or water-cooled radiators up to 280mm, or any combination of the such. Or you can simply leave the panels in place for the additional sound dampening, which is what I'm probably going to do. On the left side you'll find the almost full panel window, which is surprisingly rigid for being basically a large piece of clear plastic, with about 1½ inch of metal framing it. The window itself wasn't a big selling point for me, but I don't mind showing off the new hardware I have planned. Inside you see more of the minimalist approach. At the top, where the 5¼ inch drive cages would normally be intruding into the interior, you find a small 2-inch metal panel that would support up to two 5¼ inch drives if you were to install any at all. Below are mounts to show off up to two 2½ inch SSDs with our two 120mm fans just in front that could be removed to support up to a 280mm water cooling radiator. The motherboard tray with some pre-installed standoffs has room for a micro ATX, ATX, or extended ATX motherboard. At the bottom there's a basement where the power supply and hard drives will live. I'm not sure how I feel about the basement because I've always liked to put my PSUs with a fan facing into the case, which is not an option here. I do although like the cable management ports at the top of the basement, giving you some additional cable management avenues. Looking around the back, there is nothing too special to see other than our 120mm white accent fan, 7 white accented expansion slot covers, and power supply port. The right case panel is pretty much completely covered with sound absorbing material and is almost completely rigid and has some weight of its own, giving it a quality feel. Behind the motherboard panel, There is 34 millimeters or a little over an inch of space for cable management, which is more than enough for most setups. There are several strategically placed smooth rounded cable management holes and plenty of loops to secure all the cables with the included zip ties, allowing for a clean cable management setup. There is also one 2.5-inch cage for one SSD if you don't want to put it anywhere else. Unfortunately, there were a few quality control issues in the form of sharp metal barbs attached to screw holes from the drilling process in the motherboard panel. This can be dangerous if left uncorrected, as it could cut into a cable sleeve over time and short it out. In the basement, we find the hard drive cage with two plastic sleds for either 3.5-inch or 2.5-inch drives that are nice, but I don't see any vibration dampening grommets or the such for HDDs, which kind of takes away from the detail-oriented design that I was getting used to from the rest of the case. Luckily, the back portion of the basement does have good size and soft pads to place up to a 200mm power supply, along with a dust filter that slides out of a bottom mounted rack. Toward the front, we find all of our top I/O cables: the standard power switch, power LED, HDD activity, USB 2.0 connectors including a separate one for the SD card reader, HD audio connector, and finally the USB 3.0 connector. Lastly, the fan controller cables are split into two groups. The group labeled Fan 1 has two 3-pin connectors that go to the front two mounted 120mm fans, and the group labeled Fan 2 has three 3-pin connectors, with one already used for the rear mounted 120mm fan. I do like that all the pre-installed fans have a nice sleeve cabling with a quality feel to them. Overall, I really like this case, and I'm excited to use it for my new rig. The silence design wasn't something I was looking for when I first thought about building a new rig, but having seen the steps DIYPC has taken in the sound dampening department, I'm really interested in hearing how well it performs with the components I have planned for it. That's it for my review of the DIYPC Silence-BK-Window mid-tower case. I hope you liked it. If you did, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe for more videos. I do have a 3-parter coming soon, all about my new rig. The first part basically goes through my methodology for the parts I chose and how I got them to fit into my $1,100 budget, even when I was going for a 6700K and a GTX 1070. The second part, I'll be building a new rig on camera, and lastly, I'll be benchmarking it. We'll see how well the sound dampening works at this point. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you all in my next video. Thanks everybody!